my friends or you people out there watching me on Strong Inspirations. How you doing? How you doing? Oh my God, let me tell you something just happened to me. I got to be perfectly honest with you because I'm gonna be honest with you from, the gentleman, we were scheduled. I'm 10 minutes late. He's still there. I'm telling you, he's still there. He said, man, I'm gonna wait. And he might have been another minute or two before I had, but he's still there. He's that committed to this. I truly appreciate my guest. I don't know if he can hear me say this or not, but I truly appreciate my guest staying on, because the last lady, man, between me and you again, she started tearing up. I'm watching her tear up. I tear up because she's telling this story about what happened in her family and her ancestors out of Denver, Colorado. Everybody, you know who I am. I'm Anthony Brogdon. I'm just a guy that come on and come up with these questions and try to find these people to tell you all kinds of history, all kinds, not just some slavery or some civil rights, but some of everything. And the gentleman I got on the channel gonna tell you something that you might not have knew, but you're gonna like this. Watch, it's good stuff. Strong inspirations. Well, we give it to you straight, no chaser. You know what I want you to do, my friends? You hesitate, but last night a lot of people did it. I was surprised. My numbers jumped up. It's subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. It's free. I don't get no information or nothing. I just know that you did. I know the numbers. Hit the like on the videos. Hit the like on this video. You're going to really appreciate what he's got to share with you. I want you to hit the notifications bell so when I put a new video up, and I don't have no specific time, it can hit me at 2 in the morning. I got to share it right then and right there, and I wake up, say it might be a dream, I don't know. It could be on the Sunday or whatever, but I put these videos up so you can watch them. And so you get notified, bing, ooh, it's a new video. And then I want you to tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Don't keep this to yourself. Share this information with folk about what you're learning on this channel. All right, I really appreciate you. I really would like it if you watch my movie. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. I produced this. I hired the crew. I found the interview people, and I told the story, wrote the script. It's good because I'm good. I'm good at what I do now. And I really like for you to watch my movie. Incredible stories, incredible stories. Slaves who went to college and black millionaires in the 1800s. And it's not just Madam C.J. Walker, not just her. Even what she did was incredible. And then I love for you to read my book. It's called Black Business Book. It's over 200 facts, amazing stories. If you know everything in this book, I give your money back. For every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. All right, you should read this. This is good, and it's thorough. It's comprehensive, easy to read. I just give you the fact and let it stand on its own merit. And then I tell you where I got the fact from. It's 200 of them. I love for you to do that, and I autograph it too. And one day that's gonna mean something more. Watch. I autographed the book. So go and get your copy. Go to my website, businessintheblack.net, or go to Amazon. I don't care where you go, just get it. Just get it. Come on and get it. Hold on now, check this out. My man waiting, and I ain't gonna make him wait just but one more second because I got his attention. You hear me use that word strong a lot, right? Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. Something I came up with, I like using a lot, and that's my introduction to my guest. I could tell he's a strong guy because he waited for me. That's a good thing. I was really worried. So gentlemen, sir, strong man, introduce yourself. Let's get it on.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for inviting me to appear with you. My name is Chris Goodlett. I'm Director of Curatorial and Educational Affairs at the Kentucky Derby Museum, Louisville, Kentucky.
Whoa, that's all right. How did you, do you like horses?
You know, that's pretty interesting. When I got the job at the Derby Museum, been there about 18 years, knew very little about horses when I got the job. I came there as a lover of history and a lover of museums. But once I attended my first Kentucky Derby in 1999, I quickly fell in love with the sport and with the event that is the Kentucky Derby. But when I first got there, I didn't have a lot of knowledge about horses.
Now, I always ask my guests a little bit about them. How did you? Well, I mean, where you come from? Where were you born? And you got an educational background in history or something like that, or?
I was actually born in Boston, Massachusetts, but I've been in Kentucky since I've been 3 years old.
Okay.
So I grew up in Taylorsville, Kentucky, which is about 35 minutes southeast of Louisville. So I've been around Louisville most all my life. And yeah, I studied history in college, history, secondary education, decided to pursue a master's in public history. And after my first semester in college at Murray State University in that master's program, did my first internship at a museum in Sharon, Massachusetts, a whaling museum, and really fell in love with museums at that point. I've been with them ever since.
Is there a particular facet of history that you like, like maybe yours other than horses could have been your specialty or something like that?
Well, when I was in college, I was really fond of 20th century social and political history. I liked studying early 20th century politics, and I also liked studying, again, social history that age. I liked studying jazz. I did some studying of jazz when I was a graduate student. But I got involved in horses and equine history and racing history when I got to the museum, and have really been a big proponent, big fan of that ever since.
Before we go into that topic, let me ask you, what is bluegrass? What does that mean? I always wondered about that. I've been to Kentucky. I was mad about this. I showed my movie at the Western Library in Louisville. Now, the Western Library is known to be one of the country's first libraries operated and specifically for African Americans. Had a big showing there, and I was there. I did it like a couple days before the Kentucky Derby. What is bluegrass? I guess I said all that.
Well, bluegrass is very important to Kentucky. Some folks that have been in Kentucky a long time will tell you the grass actually is a little tinted blue. A lot of folks out of the state won't believe it. And that's probably a little bit of lore, but bluegrass is just part of our identity. It actually factors into the horse racing and stuff, that type of grass we have in Kentucky, nourishing to the horses, good for the horses, leads to fast race horses. So it's really a big part of the identity and the lore and of Kentucky.
I got you.
Something important for us.
So now at the Kentucky Derby, they have a museum there.
They do. The Kentucky Derby Museum. We are a private 501c3 nonprofit. Not owned by Churchill Downs, but of course we work with them very closely on all our exhibitions and programs that we do.
Now, okay, you said something that Churchill Downs is what?
Churchill Downs is a private corporation, for-profit company.
The race?
Yeah, they are the hosts of the Kentucky Derby. Okay. Churchill Downs, the racetrack, is actually owned by a larger corporation that owns a few other racetracks and other properties across the country.
Okay.
But Churchill Downs, the racetrack, is still their main property. And we are right next door to Churchill Downs, the racetrack. Not owned by them, private nonprofit, but we work with them very closely.
Now, but throughout the year, they're more than just understandably, the Kentucky Derby race that happens there.
Yeah, that's correct. Basically, there are two main meets at Churchill Downs every year. The spring meet usually starts about a week before the Kentucky Derby. So it's going to start in late April, early May every year. And that's going to run probably through around the end of June. They'll take a break and they'll have a major fall meet that starts right around the last week of October and will run through right around Thanksgiving time. Okay. They've added a few weekends in September as well, but their two main meets are that spring meet and that fall meet. So yeah, you're exactly right. Okay. There are more races at Churchill Downs than the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, sure. But we would have to say the Kentucky Derby is the largest of all the races, though. Is that necessarily the case?
Well, the Kentucky Derby is, I would say, easily the most well-known, most popular race in the United States of America. Of course, I'm biased. I work there, big fan of the Kentucky Derby. But yeah, we have a large attendance every year. Talking pre-COVID, we averaged between 150, 160,000 fans every year at the racetrack for Kentucky Derby Day, which is always the first Saturday in May. Get a nice TV audience as well. So in my opinion, and in many others, we are the most significant race in the United States.
That's what I would think. Now, there are probably other races around the world that are pretty significant. Is there another one that rivals the Kentucky Derby? The Preakness and the other one, they come second, third.
Well, the races that I would say that most people, let's say they're not race fans, they're just sports fans that follow racing once in a while, they would obviously mention the Kentucky Derby. They would mention other Triple Crown races you mentioned, the Preakness Stakes in Baltimore, Maryland, and the Belmont Stakes in Long Island, New York. Those are probably the three most well-known races just to the general public. There's another series of races that happens in the fall called the Breeders' Cup. I think that's now a series of 14 races. It's kind of racing's championship day that kind of caps off their year.
Okay.
The feature race for that event is called the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Okay.
The same distance as the Kentucky Derby, 1.25 miles. That's another race that a lot of people might have heard of that would be on par with the popularity of the Derby. And
okay, because I've heard of that too. Yeah, I've heard of that too. Now, at the museum, and because of what the premise of of Strong Inspirations, we talk about Black history. And so that was one of the, what we want to share, and you're going to share with us what's at the museum, some of the exhibits, some historical facts. You got the floor.
All right. Well, we have had some exhibit, some form or fashion, looking at the history of African Americans in thoroughbred racing since 1992. That's when we did our first exhibition on African Americans in racing, and the museum's only been open since 1985. So it was actually one of our earliest permanent exhibits. We just recently expanded that exhibit, and it's on the first floor of the museum, and we've rebranded Black Heritage in Racing Exhibition. It's just about 1,000 square foot exhibit, has some of our oldest artifacts, because Black Heritage in Racing goes back to the first Kentucky Derby in 1875. And it also has some of our best artwork, because in the 20th century, many people were using art to kind of tell the story of Black jockeys and Black horsemen throughout the 19th and 20th century and even earlier. But we also have some interviews we've done with several folks in the industry, people that are currently working in the horse industry, people that are descendants of African Americans that worked in the horse industry, and also did some interviews with folks that work at cultural heritage sites and museums in Louisville and Lexington, which is where horse country is, about 75 miles east of Louisville, and really got a lot of great feedback from the community, a lot of great comments from the community that really helped inform this exhibit and really make it a stellar exhibit that we hope all people will come and see and learn a lot and learn more about Black heritage and racing.
Is there somebody who is considered the granddaddy of African American horse racing?
Yeah, let me start just by saying that the very first Kentucky Derby was run in 1875. And at that race, 13 of the 15 jockeys were African American.
Really?
Including the winner, Oliver Lewis.
So the first Kentucky Derby race was won by an African American guy.
Yes, Oliver Lewis. He never rode in another Kentucky Derby. He would have some other jobs in the industry after that, but he won that very first Kentucky Derby, 1875. So he'll forever be part of history as being that inaugural winner.
Okay, I got to stop you there. I do this every now and then. I don't mean no harm. Why was there so many Black jockeys? Because racism does a funny thing. So it wasn't a cute thing for white jockeys, or why so many Black jockeys at them years?
Well, Black horsemen and Black jockeys laid the foundation for the sport of racing and for the Kentucky Derby. And it goes back, at least for purposes of our country, what would be the United States of America, it goes back to the 1600s and the era of slavery. The enslaved that were working on a lot of the plantations, because racing initially was a very popular sport in the South. Some of the earliest places where you'd see races, organized races, South Carolina, Virginia. These are Southern states, plantation economy. The enslaved are running those economies and running those plantations. They're taking care of the horses, which includes riding the horses as jockeys. So it goes back to that part of our history. As we move forward, again, I said the first Kentucky Derby, 1875, 10 years after the end of the Civil War. Black jockeys are still the dominant jockeys in the sport. As I mentioned, 13 of the 15 jockeys, first Kentucky Derby, are African American. For the first 28 runnings, first 28 editions of the Kentucky Derby, 15 of those were won by African American jockeys. The most recent African American jockey to win the Derby was Jimmy Winkfield in 1902. And to your point, what happens? Plessy versus Ferguson, that Supreme Court case that really legalized segregation and Jim Crow in this country, that affects African Americans in their daily life. and on the racetrack as well. So you get to the early 20th century, the era of segregation and Jim Crow, and that's when black jockeys begin to be pushed out of the sport.
Oh, well, that's kind of in reverse then, like of baseball. You know, I mean, we had it was many years ago in football and basketball before they allowed African Americans into the sport. But horse racing was different.
Yeah, it was. It started mostly, in those southern states, at least predominantly in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
You had, plantations, the southern economy, of course, the plantation economy. And as I mentioned, the enslaved were running those plantations, including taking care of the horses and riding the horses. Because, initially, when we're talking the colonial days, let's say the 1600s, you wouldn't necessarily need a race track or a race course to run a race. Yeah. At that time, it might be more popular just to see two owners challenge each other, have their horses race head to head on just a straight. So everywhere you have a straight strip of land, dirt or grass, you can run your horses on, you can run head to head. And going back to that era, that colonial era, European colonization of what would become the United States of America. That's when you see those first jockeys and their African American jockeys back in the era.
Can you imagine that the black jockeys had that their owners treated them maybe a little bit better to make sure their health was better for the races or anything like that, and less brutal to them? And also were those guys some celebrities in their own right, maybe during that time?
Well, there's actually a wonderful story that speaks to the point, Anthony, that you were mentioning. So let's go back to the early 1800s. General Andrew Jackson, who would later become president of the United States, was a well-known horse breeder. Towards the end of his life, apparently a biographer asked General Jackson, or President Jackson, as he would have been at that time, do you have any regrets in life? And apparently his response was initially, no, I don't. But then he paused and said, well, wait a minute, paraphrasing here, I do have one regret. Haney's Maria. I couldn't beat Haney's Maria. Haney's Maria, sometimes known as Maria in the 18 teens, was a horse that Jackson ran against 9 times and never defeated. Her jockey was an enslaved man named Simon. And during the course of these races, we have some documentation where Simon could actually be kind of flippant and speak pretty brazenly to General Jackson on the race course. Here's an example of one thing that was said. Apparently, before one of the races, when General Jackson was going to race his horse against Maria and Simon, Jackson apparently said to Simon, now, Simon, when we're running this race today, don't go spitting tobacco juice in the eyes of my jockey and my horse as you're known to do. And apparently, without missing a beat, Simon's response to General Jackson was, well, General, I've run against a lot of your horses, and up to this point, none have been fast enough to catch my spit.
Yeah.
So to your point, the enslaved would not have been able to typically do that in the course of everyday life before emancipation. As a jockey, had a bit more leeway. But we also want to be careful to say when we state that Simon was an exception. We tell that story. Sometimes people see it as kind of humorous when you kind of give that quip, but we want to make sure people understand that this was an exception. It should not be seen as any indicator of what life was like for the enslaved.
Sure.
So,
was there
to your point, Simon as a jockey with some status could talk to General later President Andrew Jackson in that way without repercussion.
Was there without stepping on walking that fine line with the Kentucky, was there some separate but facilities for the black jockeys compared to the white jockeys, anything like that?
That's a good question. As far as Churchill is concerned, in the era when black jockeys were predominant, I don't know of any instance of separations in the jockeys' quarters. That could have been. That's a good question. Probably deserves more research on our part. But from top of mind, I don't know of segregated quarters for jockeys during that time period.
Really? That's got to be commendable, because I mean, there's always.
And I would say there could have been. I say that was saying,
but it's not.
There might be more research on our part. But from memory, I don't know of a location where there were separate quarters. So.
When a black jockey won the race, were they celebrated and the majority of people threw flowers at him or something like that? Or did he have to He won the race and had to go to the back of the room immediately. You know what I mean? Was he able to get the fanfare and even white people said, "Hey, we love you," and then all of a sudden they said, "Oh man, it's a black guy." You know what I mean?
You know, it would work. It would work both ways. Let me give you a positive example. You asked me a few moments ago who might be seen as the greatest black jockey of all time, or in the era of the Kentucky Derby. And one of the greatest jockeys of all time is an African-American jockey named Isaac Murphy. He was the first jockey to win the Kentucky Derby on 3 occasions. And he ran the latter part of the 19th century, or rode horses during the latter part of the 19th century. And he had a 44% career winning percentage. Just to give you a little bit of perspective,
Right.
jockey in the modern era, riding the same races or level of races that Isaac was, might have a winning percentage between 20 and 25%.
Oh, he was good then.
Yeah, he was great. Record keeping wasn't as good back then. Some
Yeah.
estimate that his percentage was lower, but in any event, he won a high percentage of races, greater than percentage for most current jockeys today riding at his level. Now, in the media, Murphy would often be celebrated, and he would often be credited for his great race riding and his skill as a race rider. In 1955, when Racing's Hall of Fame first opened, he was the first jockey, or among the first group of jockeys admitted to the Hall of Fame in
Really?
1955. He was one of the first inductees, the first year they had them in 55. But it could work the opposite. I can go back to media accounts, late 19th century, early 20th century, where maybe an African-American jockey didn't have a good ride on a mount, or maybe one of the white jockeys he was riding against felt that didn't like the African-American jockey's riding techniques.
Yeah.
They would say things in the media, racial epithets, very derogatory things towards a black jockey in the media. So it did work both ways.
Sure. I know it's different, but could that black jockey be, and I like this point, I want to stay with just a little bit long. Could he be celebrated like maybe a Jack Johnson was or something like that? Would he walk around town, Louisville, and, people would want his autograph or something like that? Do you think?
That's possible. I mean, I can go back and talk about Isaac Murphy again. We have images of Isaac Murphy in our collection and other collections I've seen where he's very prominently pictured with white jockeys at a jockey's quarters right before a race, or even at social activities.
Okay.
So it could have, what you're saying could happen from time to time.
Oh,
yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Now, the only other guy, I'm not, big horse race man, I ain't gonna tell you no tale, is Shoemaker.
Mm-hmm. Shoemaker.
He might have won a lot of them, didn't he?
He won 4 Kentucky Derbies.
Okay.
He is second all time among Kentucky Derby winning jockeys.
Yeah, I know. I recognize that name.
Mm-hmm.
What other professions were blacks doing beside the race? Caring for the horses, brushing the hair on the horses, manning the stables, whatever.
Yeah, African Americans were prolific trainers in the same era we're talking about. Those early Kentucky Derbies from 1875 to 1902. One of the greatest trainers of that era was a gentleman named Ansel Williamson. He was born enslaved in Virginia, a great horse trainer in the early 1860s, probably right before the Civil War started. He was employed by, he was brought aboard, I should say, as an enslaved man to Woodburn Farm, which was a prominent Lexington, Kentucky farm. Again, Lexington is horse country, about 75 miles east of us here in Louisville. And he was brought as the head trainer and is recognized as one of the greatest trainers. He trained a horse named Asteroid for Woodburn Farm, which Asteroid was undefeated in 12 starts. Another great story, Ansel Williamson, while he was at Woodburn Farm, he was there through the Civil War. And on one occasion, William Quantrill, noted Confederate raider, came to Woodburn Farm with the intent of stealing Asteroid. So he actually, Ansel Williamson, met Quantrill at gunpoint. Quantrill demanded that Ansel Williamson give him Asteroid.
Asteroid the horse.
Asteroid the horse.
Right.
So Williamson gave Quantrill a horse, but it wasn't Asteroid. He intentionally gave him a wrong horse. Even at gunpoint with his life threatened, Ansel did not give William Quantrill Asteroid, who at the time was the greatest horse on the farm at Woodburn Farm. 1965, post-emancipation, when Ansel Williamson is a free man, he continues to train. He eventually connects with Hal Price McGrath, who is an owner in the bluegrass area, and they are the owner and trainer of Aristides, the first Kentucky Derby winner. Ansel Williamson, who trained Asteroid at Woodburn Farm, after the Civil War, trains the very first Kentucky Derby winner, Aristides, who was ridden by an African-American jockey.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So yeah, trainers as well. So black horsemen functioned at various levels at that time. Trainers, jockeys, all kinds of work involved with horse farms and horses they were doing.
Oh, okay. Oh, have there ever been a black guy who had a horse that was in the Kentucky Derby?
Yes. The earliest owner, African-American owner of a Derby winner, Dudley Allen in 1891. He was co-owner of a horse named Kingman with a gentleman named Keziah Stone, a white man. And Kingman, 1891, was ridden by Isaac Murphy, the great jockey Isaac Murphy, who was the first to win 3 Kentucky Derbies. Dudley Allen was the co-owner. You get into the 20th century, several prominent African-Americans, or a few prominent African-Americans, owned Kentucky Derby horses. Stanley Burrell, I'm a Gen Xer, so I know Stanley Burrell better as MC Hammer. Many people might know him better as MC Hammer.
Oh, really?
His family, the Burrell family, in the 90s started Oaktown Stables. They owned a Derby horse in 1992, actually had a Kentucky Oaks winner in 1991. The Kentucky Oaks is the companion race to the Kentucky Derby, which is strictly for fillies or female horses that is run the day before the Derby. And Oaktown Stable, MC Hammer, and the Burrell family owned a horse named Light that won the Oaks in 1991. Barry Gordy, Motown fame. Many of us know Barry Gordy. He owned a horse that ran in the Kentucky Derby in 1984. At the end of the 20th century, as you get to that era, we're talking about segregation and Jim Crow, pushing African Americans out of the sport.
Right.
As that happens, African Americans that continue to work in the industry usually work on farms and on the backside of racetracks with the horses, less high profile positions, have less visibility, of course, than jockeys and trainers. African Americans continue to work in the industry. But as you get to the 20th century, you see some African American owners like Barry Gordy, like Stanley MC Hammer Burrell, that are famous in other industries, and then later on buy race horses. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are involved in the industry that kind of approach it that way. They may have a history in the industry, and that's how they got there. But a lot of folks are buying racehorses after getting some fame and maybe getting
sure. It's an expensive sport too.
And then they invest in racehorses.
Yeah, it's an expensive sport. Is there this is different than Kentucky Derby, and maybe hopefully you don't mind I ask you this. No, is there a black owned horse racetrack, or horse organization that sponsors a race somewhere in America?
I don't know of any black owned racetracks.
Okay.
But I can tell you the 21st century, African Americans, especially here in the bluegrass, are taking a vested interest in getting more African Americans involved in the sport. Greg Harbit is one gentleman here in Kentucky who is a descendant of Will Harbit. His great grandfather was Will Harbit, who's affiliated with a great horse named Man of War. Greg Harbit has been involved in the industry. He was a co-owner of a Derby starter last year. He and his partner, Raymond Daniels, also African-American, they have started some initiatives to get Black owners more involved and have more Black owners in the thoroughbred industry. And they also have some scholarship programs that they have started to get more folks, persons of color, especially African-Americans, involved in the industry in various ways. I talked to you earlier about so many of the interviews that we did for this Black Heritage and Racing exhibit. Right. And to your point, a lot of people ask about jockeys. A lot of people ask about trainers. Right. But folks we talked to in the African-American community here in Louisville, one of the things they mentioned, well, that's great. Jockeys and trainers are great. Right. But what about racetrack CEO? What about racetrack CFO? Yeah, sure. All these types of positions as well. Sure. There's a lot that goes on, like any industry. There's a lot of positions that make a racetrack move forward. Sure. In a lot of ways that people like Greg Harbit and Ray Daniels and others are trying to get more African Americans involved in the sport here in Kentucky and nationally. Oh, is there an invention or a racing style
that a black person has come up with that has kind of did something to the industry to change the industry for the better or some sort? Like you kick the horse with one leg to the left. You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You've done your research.
Yeah.
What I think you're probably referring to is a black jockey named Willie Sims, a two-time Kentucky Derby winner. He won in 1896 and 1898. He at one point went over to Europe, went to England predominantly, and he introduced in England what is called the short stirrup style of racing, kind of what you're referring to. In England at that time, late 19th, early 20th century, you might see jockeys kind of standing up more in those stirrups and riding that way.
Okay.
But what he introduced was the crouch with the short stirrup, which was more popular in the United States. He is credited with introducing that style to England and to Europe. Willie Sims not only is a two-time Kentucky Derby winner, he is also another Hall of Fame jockey, just like Isaac Murphy.
Lastly, was there something about the way we made the horseshoes, or has there ever been a company that made the supplies, the saddle, or anything like that? Anything unique about that?
Are you talking about just as innovation or black?
Yeah, innovation, or just a company that ever came along that used that manufactured their own horseshoes or something like that? I don't know.
Off the top of my head, I can't cite
a
person or a company that's done that. However, I can say that farriers, the farriers are the folks that actually are the blacksmiths that create the horseshoes that go on the horses. And many African Americans have been farriers. There are some in the Horseshoeing Hall of Fame. There is an international Horseshoeing Hall of Fame that's actually housed at the Kentucky Derby Museum that has African American members. So all those folks are responsible for certain innovations, but I don't have a specific example.
I got you, but I like it. Yeah, that's
very possible.
Yeah. Is there a question that I have not asked you or something like that comes to mind?
Not a question in particular. I will take a minute.
Or whatever.
I will take a minute if you'll allow me. I talked about our Black Heritage and Racing exhibit.
Yeah, please.
About 1,000 square feet at the museum. But actually, this is a larger project at the Kentucky Derby Museum. In addition to the exhibit, we have a Black Heritage and Racing tour that we offer. When there's no racing, we offer it every week on Saturday. And basically what that tour is, it's a 90-minute tour that takes you around Churchill Downs and takes you to spots that specifically are very important to African-American history and racing. One of the spots we hit on that tour is a huge mural at Churchill Downs done by an artist named Pierre Belloc. He's a Frenchman, often known as Peb. And the reason we take people to that mural is you see two different murals. One shows all the Kentucky Derby winning jockeys throughout history. The other shows all the Kentucky Derby winning trainers throughout history. And what visitors will see when they see that mural is it goes left to right. So when they look at the left, they see all those African-American jockeys that won those early Kentucky Derbies. And as you go to the right, there's less and less until there are none.
Right.
And that's a great discussion point for us to talk about how African-Americans were laid the foundation for the race and for the industry, and what happened with segregation and Jim Crow. Just that mural alone offers us a great talking point to really make sure people understand how important that was and what happened throughout history. In addition to that tour, we actually have an educational program performance. It's called Proud of My Calling. It's 60 minutes. It's currently offered once a month on Saturdays. And what we've done with that, we do have some narration that kind of grounds people in the history and kind of gives them some context, but largely it is a performance. We have 3 actors. We have 2 African-American actors that one actor portrays Jimmy Winkfield. He portrays Ansel Williamson, and he portrays Hosea Williams, a protester, because there was a huge protest at Churchill Downs in 1967.
Oh,
which is
really?
part of the history of the track as well. But we have another actor that portrays Isaac Murphy and also portrays the enslaved jockey Simon, who I was telling you about earlier.
Yes.
So those gentlemen really have added life to some of these stories through that performance. And it's a very powerful piece that we're really proud to host at the museum. So the Black Heritage and Racing Project is all encompassing. There's a lot of parts to it. There's an exhibit, there's a tour, there's a performance. And we actually have I can't say a whole lot now, so I apologize for kind of giving you the teaser on it, not giving specifics, but people can find out more about it later. We have 2 initiatives coming up soon that are really community-based, that we think will get the community involved in sharing some more stories and helping us tell some of the history regarding the Black heritage in racing. Love to tell you more. My marketing communication folks, I'd get in trouble with them if I shared more right now.
Yeah,
but
no, I understand.
Those are going to be unveiled soon. And we're very pleased with those initiatives and think they're going to be a great resource for people to learn this history.
Now, I got one more question. Then I want you to, give us the website and that kind of thing to the museum. Sure. Were Black spectators allowed at the Kentucky Derby back in those days?
From what we know, from what we have with the documentation, from 1875 up until 1961, seating was segregated. Churchill Downs was actually one of the earliest places in Louisville to desegregate their seating. But that being said, the gentleman I mentioned to you earlier, Greg Harbit, whose grandfather, Will Harbit, was associated with Man of War. Well, Greg Harbit's father, Tom Harbit, was also involved in racing. He was an owner and trainer of racehorses. So even though Churchill desegregated in 1961, Tom Harbit was a co-owner of a Derby starter in 1962. And according to Greg, his son, Tom could not sit in the grandstand to watch his horse race in the Kentucky Derby. So even though Churchill was officially desegregated, at least by law, the social custom of segregation at that time, Greg is really speaking to how powerful that social custom was. And even though legally he could have sat there, the custom kind of at that time. So, but to your point, up until 1961, seating was segregated at Churchill.
I got you. What's the website for the museum? And we coming down.
The website is derbymuseum, all one word, .org. And you can find out all about these exhibits and initiatives that we've discussed today on our website.
Yes. Okay. Well, hey, everybody, I told you it's going to be a unique story. I got close. I was there one week, but I had to leave and didn't see a race, but I know people who come down and the ladies wear the hats and the guys wear the suits. What's the I met a guy, an African-American guy when I was there that time. He had an orange, is it orange or pink jacket that they all wear who are part of the board or something like that?
Oh yeah, you're talking about the Kentucky Derby Festival, which is a separate event. So Derby time in Louisville is not just the race. We start celebrating it about 3 weeks out.
Yeah, right.
There is a nonprofit called the Kentucky Derby Festival that sponsors a series of events from mid-April up to Derby Day. And yes, they are known for those colored jackets.
There's the colored jackets.
The staff and board of the Kentucky Derby Festival.
That's right.
I think you're correct right now. I think it is pink. It may have been a different color, but I do think pink is the color they use right now.
Yeah, I've seen that, everybody. I tell you, I know what I'm talking about. Some folks out there, I get it now.
You've done your research. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this. I apologize for being a little late, but it got emotional and we just couldn't let it go. And the timing was kind of crunched like that. So thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciate you sharing this information with us. And how about this, man? I got to be honest. I like it that y'all got that exhibit. Because you might not have had to have that. But that the people there are conscious enough to share that information.
Yeah, well, as I've said, Anthony, we've had Sunburst now since 1992. And what makes the current exhibit so great, the Black Heritage and Racing exhibit, which just opened this past March, the artifacts I love. I'm a museum collections person, so it's some of the oldest artifacts, so I love that. The artwork and some of the things that we have there are also great. But what really makes it is those in the African-American community in Louisville and Lexington that shared their stories and told us their perspective and really brought that exhibit to life.
I love it.
To me, that's what's really made that exhibit. And we're very fortunate that those folks wanted to share those stories with us.
I got you.
And we're pleased to host them.
Yeah. Well, so with that, everybody, let's go down there. Let's go see the museum. And you don't have to wait till the Derby. You can, throughout the year.
We're open year round.
To you, my friend, I say this. I thank you for coming on the channel and sharing this information. I thank the Kentucky Derby people for doing what they're doing to keep that history alive. I say to you with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing. We're waiting on that new exhibit that you can't tell us about that's coming. We're coming to see it. We'll be back at you. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.